There was an interview with Olivia Wilde. She's an actress, very, very famous. If you don't know her, take a second, look her up. You'll see her face. You'll know exactly who we're talking about. And she did an interview with Interview Magazine with director Maggie Gyllenhaal. And she gets into Rollo's topics that he focuses on all the time. It was kind of fascinating. So she starts talking about this character in a film that she did that they based on Jordan Peterson. Rollo, I want you to take a listen to this interaction, and then you're gonna be chomping at the bit to get involved and to give your take on it. So give me a second. I'm going to read through this for you and for the audience. So Wilde says, "Oh, terrifying. We based a character on this insane man, Jordan Peterson, who is this pseudo-intellectual hero to the incel community. You know the incels?" And Gyllenhaal says, "No." Wilde says, "Well, they're basically disenfranchised, mostly white men who believe they are entitled to sex from women." Gyllenhaal says, "Oh, right." And Wilde says, "And they believe that society has now robbed them, that the idea of feminism is working against nature, and that we must be put back in the correct place." Gyllenhaal then says, "Well, they must be psyched. Things are going really well for them." And Wilde says, "Yeah, they're actually succeeding in many different ways. But this guy, Jordan Peterson, is someone that legitimizes certain aspects of their movement because he's a former professor, he's an author, he wears a suit. So they feel like this is a real philosophy that should be taken seriously." So Rollo, this is a dig at incels. This is a modern feminist interpretation of the incel community. Please don't hold back. Let's hear it.
Yeah. Okay. So I am already very familiar with this. I forget the show host's name, but he is the guy who is the host of Good Morning Britain, I think it was. I'm not really sure. Somebody can dig up his name. I wanted to say it's not McGinnis. Who was it? I forget the guy's name. Anyways, he was let's see, Jordan Peterson was on an interview show with him, and they were talking about exactly this.
Is it Piers Morgan? Is that who it is?
Piers Morgan. There
you go.
So Jordan Peterson was on with Piers Morgan, and he had this really tearful kind of like, tearjerker moment when Piers brought exactly this topic up, right? Say, well, how do you feel about that, right? And I was watching this. I'm like, how is Jordan Peterson like the prophet of the incels? Because it blew me away, because I've been following Jordan Peterson since like 2017. Anybody who knows anything about me, I've already locked horns with Michaela Peterson on several occasions. But how he is portrayed as sort of king of the incels is beyond me, considering that there's so much video and so much footage of him, especially denouncing MGTOW, denouncing MRAs, denouncing the red pill, denouncing help me, for forever. I mean, I can, and I don't want to use the word this early in your show, but let's forced sexual copulation, right? Let's just call it that for right now. Any guy that is like running game, or any guy who is not chosen by a woman who's trying to deceive women into liking him, he is, basically the equivalent of an, let's say, e-parist. And so when I see that, I'm like, I'm just like, I'm mystified by this, because it's almost like Jordan wants to own it for a bit, but then he's really kind of agonizing over it as well. I think so that's one aspect of it. I'm like, I think it's sort of like misdirected fire on the part of this director. What's her name?
Maggie Gyllenhaal.
Oh, Gyllenhaal. Okay. So, when I have to watch this thing. So I have to figure out like who the villain is. Right. And I think it's interesting that we are basing, like our villainous characters, or the bad guys, are now no longer like the Russians or the Afghans or the terrorists or whatever it is, just name it. Now it's the incels get their moment to be the Hollywood bad guys now. And it's like, who is it okay to hate? Who is it okay to, throw stones at? And apparently it's the quote unquote incel community. And so what is incel? An incel is an involuntary celibate. They've been around forever. Prior to being called incels, they used to be part of a movement called the True Forced Loneliness movement, way back in like 2010 or 2012. And so now the term incel is kind of like this catch-all, like, insult, I guess, a derogatory term for guys who just don't get it. They don't get laid. They're perma virgins, right? They're the losers in high school, and we have this nice, cute little internet word for these guys right now. And I think what's frightening a larger whole of society is the fact that there's a lot of these guys, and I think they've always been around. It's just that we're more aware of them now in the social media age, because these guys now have a platform and they now have forums and they can all commiserate together. And so I think a lot of what I talk about in the manosphere and in red pill spheres, let's just say, gets confused with like, oh, these are the incels. They're dangerous. They're gonna go and drive a truck through a yoga studio and kill all the women in there. There's this really sort of, I think, way overblown panic about these guys, because I would say like 98% of them, 99% of them are entirely harmless. They just simply want to commiserate over their lot in life and find a way to sort of pull themselves out of it. And it's kind of difficult for them to do that in today's, data age, because there's so much, like I said, commiseration. And so it's like this self-repeating sort of negative feedback loop that these guys get into. And so now you see a director, you see writers, especially female writers, see them as the enemy because they're beta males. And God forbid these guys actually have some sort of voice or some sort of empowerment in a gynocentric social order that doesn't need men, but it wants men, and it doesn't want them.
If you want to watch the full episode, you're going to click right here. And if you want to ask me a question one-on-one, you want to do a one-on-one FaceTime with a group of your friends, whatever you want, you need to download Connect right now. Click right here and let's get talking.